this point in the conference, really, this is the ceremony where we're having the prize named after Bernard Lewis. And as we've done for the past 3 years now, Michael Lewis, Bernard's son, is here with us tonight to present the Bernard Lewis Awards. This is something that we've done over the past 3 years in order to honor Lewis's legacy with scholars that have really internalized a lot of the scholarship that Lewis put out there. And really, it's a wonderful thing that we feel that we can do as an association, honoring our founding fathers, Bernard Lewis and Fuad Ajami. So tonight, Michael will be presenting the awards. Logistically, as many of you know, many of our attendees are online as a result of being abroad and being in Israel and could not be here in person. So there'll be this tonight as well will be hybrid. We have one of our recipients will be in person. The others will be online, and we will take it from there. So really, without further ado, it's my pleasure to invite Michael Lewis to the stage to present the awards.
If you can't hear me, just let me know because I talk softly. I apologize. Good evening. I'm, as I've said, Michael Lewis, Bernard's son. I'm truly delighted to be here this evening to introduce the ASMEA third annual awarding of the Bernard Lewis Prize on Anti-Semitism. Good topic, you'd say. Although obviously current events in Israel and Gaza and around the world, including London and DC. If any of you were around yesterday, you probably saw some demonstrators, mass demonstrators. So I'd like to temper that delight because of what's happening around the world. But they also show very nearly the problem and the need for this prize. If it makes a small contribution, that's great. And I understand that some of the attendees, and in fact some of the speakers and some of the awardees are actually unable to be here in person because of what's happening in Israel. I'm truly saddened that this is topical, this subject's been. I've never tried to channel what I believe my father would think about certain events and developments, although I believe I have a pretty good idea what would be saying today were he still with us. And I believe that some of his past writings provide a guide to that. I obviously have my own views and observations, but this is not the place for me to offer my own personal views or to even say what Bernard Lewis would have thought. Some of you are actually more expert in that than I am. As I said last year, it scarcely takes my telling the anti-Semitism is growing, and because it was a subject that my father had both a scholarly and a personal interest in. He did write about anti-Semitism and anti-Semitism in the Middle East, and he did note certain trends in Western Europe. I think it's actually a tragedy that the voices of my father and his ASMEA co-founder, Fuad Ajami, aren't with us this time. It's left a gaping vat of what could have been filled in the press. And I view ASMEA and the importance of its mission, which this year marks its 16th year since its founding, as a counter to the Middle East Studies Association, MESA, which actually just concluded its conference in Montreal today. So before concluding and introducing the awardees, let me just note a couple of Bernard Lewis anniversary milestones this year. It's the 90th anniversary of Bernard Lewis starting his studies as a student at the University of London. At the university returned to as a graduate student and then also, of course, as a professor. And it's the 60th anniversary of my father being made a Fellow of the British Academy. It's, of course, the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, October War, which Bernard Lewis had made some predictions about before, about the forthcomingness of Egypt and Israel. I'd also note that it's 50 years next year since my father left the University of London and came to Princeton and the Institute of Advanced Studies in America. It's also next year the 70th anniversary of my father's first visit to the United States on a speaking tour. So back to the It's 40 years since Bernard Lewis wrote The Revolt of Islam, which was in the New York Review of Books, and 30 years since Bernard Lewis wrote Islam and the West was published. And finally, it's 20 years, the same month that my father was #1 in the Washington Post non-fiction bestseller list for What Went Wrong, and #1 hardcover non-fiction for The Crisis of Islam. And then there was a C-SPAN 3-hour interview that year, book notes from my father's house in Princeton. And finally, it's 5+ years since my father passed, and is now buried in Israel. Okay, on to the awardees. To quote ASMEA, the Bernard Lewis Prize is awarded to scholars or practitioners engaged in the study of issues of anti-Semitism that were of great importance to the father Bernard Lewis. And while Christian anti-Semitism is well studied, a stigma remains addressing anti-Semitism in the Muslim world. And very relatively few scholars focus on this topic. So let me just congratulate, before I name all the recipients, and let me just note, as I did last year, that I have no role in the selection or anything, a nomination of the prize winners. This is purely and totally ASMEA's nominees. So thank you so much, and let me name the 5 nominees. I'm going to name them all, and then each one will accept. In order, it's Dr. Halil Yenigan from Stanford, who is on Worse than Jubilee, the Jew as a Muslim nemesis in Sayyid Qutb's thought. It's also Shaul Batal, Bar-Ilan University and University of Lisbon, for An Age of Hate, the Tunisian Jews during the Holocaust. Dr. Limor Lavi, Bar-Ilan University, for Anti-Jewish Hate Speech under Mubarak Re-Examined. Professor Richard Landers of Boston University, Can the Whole World Be Wrong? Lethal Journalism, Anti-Semitism, and Global Jihad. And finally, Professor Monty Penkawa, Mashon Landa Graduate School of Jewish Studies, After the Holocaust. So these are the 5, and the first to accept will be Dr. Halil Yenigan of Stanford University.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. It is actually a great honor for me to get an award in the name of such a great scholar, Bernard Lewis, and from his son, Michael Lewis. This paper that I wrote on Sayyid Qutb's anti-Semitism, it actually has an interesting story. I wrote it by invitation, not this one, but an earlier version of that about anti-Semitism in Turkey. And a book by that title will come out in Germany and in Turkey. But then they found it too theoretical because I'm trained in political theory and I do comparative political theory. They found it very theoretical, and they just wanted me, they cut out all the theoretical part, and they wanted me to do another research about how Sayyid Qutb was received in Turkey and how his reception in Turkey contributed to the anti-Semitism in Turkey. And I wrote that, but then what would I do, like with the earlier version? So I sent it to different, actually, conferences before ASMEA. So I sent it to American Political Association. And until now, I've been there like maybe 7-8 times, and there was never ever an instance where my paper was rejected. At least I would get posterization. So this one got rejected immediately. I don't want to comment more on that, but some of the issues that we are addressing here, that may be as well valid in this respect too. So like if I wrote something, and this is what I did for my dissertation back in the day, to bring a new light to Sayyid Qutb's thought, like from a political theory perspective, like his critique of Western epistemology and this and that, yeah, like it was very well received and it was well acclaimed. But the point when a person from a Muslim majority country addresses a Muslim thinker's anti-Semitism, which is egregious, and I try to document that, it was very integral to his overall theory. The moment I wrote about that, somehow it got rejected, even though that paper was much well prepared than my all other half-baked papers. Interesting, okay? And again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present my paper over here. It's a great crowd, and thank you.
Thank you. And the second ASMEA awardee is Dr. Shaul Bartal of Bar-Ilan University and University of Lisbon, An Age of Hate, the Tunisian Jews during the Holocaust.
I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the great honor I have received. It is a great honor because I remember myself as a young Middle Eastern studies student attending a lecture by Bernard Lewis in Tel Aviv University. It was during the mid-90s, during the Oslo period, and I remember him saying the sentence like, Islam hadn't said the last word yet. He was right and we are still waiting. Lewis was able to explain well the incomprehensible symbiosis of Jews living in the Islamic world. Anti-Semitism and Jew hatred also existed in the Muslim world, and not only in Europe. As I show in my article, even the Nazis were in the Muslim world, and not only in Europe. For 7 months, the Jews of Tunisia suffered from direct German Nazi rule. Hitler is considered a hero in the Arab world, and in some parts, including in a number of Hamas publications, to this day. I have to say that during this war, I saw a lot of publication from Hamas website remembering Hitler. There was also a program in the Arab world, even if it was called Faroud or in any other name. Once again, thank you very much for the great honor of receiving, thank you Michael, for this prize in the name of Professor Bernard Lewis that I admired and read all his books, who know more than anyone else on the spatial bound of love, appreciation, and hatred between Jews and Muslims. Thank you.
I'm deeply honored to be named a recipient of the Bernard Lewis Award this year. I'd like to extend my sincere appreciation to the Lewis family for the generous recognition. I'd also like to thank the committee that carefully evaluated my nomination, and special thanks to the organizers for making this possible for me to participate remotely given the horrible circumstances in Israel that prevented me from joining you in Washington. Thank you all for your support, and I truly hope that I will be able to attend next year's meeting in person.
Greetings to all from Jerusalem, the capital of the State of Israel and my home for the past 21 years. I am delighted to having been selected as a recipient of the Bernard Lewis Book Prize this year for my volume After the Holocaust. Aware of the pioneering scholarly contribution made by the late Professor Lewis in alerting our world to the dangers of radical Islamism, I am particularly moved to accept this award. At a time when Israel continues its war with Hamas, a terrorist adversary guilty of unprecedented atrocities against civilians, and one that is committed, along with Hezbollah, a second Iranian proxy, to a genocidal campaign aimed at destroying the one Jewish state, I had to stand with my fellow citizens and forego the ASMEA annual conference. The chapters of After the Holocaust examine facets in the drama of how the survivors of the Shoah contended with life after the darkest night in Jewish history. They included Earl Harrison's mission and its significant report, the effort to keep Europe's borders open to refugee passage, the murder of the first Jew in Germany after VE Day and its aftermath, and the iconic sculptures of Nathan Rappaport and Poland's landscape of Holocaust memory up to the present day. After a third of world Jewry had been obliterated by Nazi Germany and collaborating nations into anonymity and ash, most survivors had few doubts about the pressing, vital need for sovereignty in their ancestral homeland, Eretz Yisrael. From then onwards, that tiny sliver of land hugging the Mediterranean continues to serve the Jewish people and their allies in the ongoing struggle for decency and truth as a bridge against apocalyptic despair, providing some solace and even joy in the wake of hitherto unimaginable horror. Alas, the Holocaust is still at times trivialized, universalized, even brazenly denied outright. Furthermore, senseless hatred of Jews and the depersonalization of the powerless are not alien to our age. Anti-Zionism is the new anti-Semitism. All who cherish freedom must champion Israel's right to exist and to thrive as a beacon of light in a very troubled planet. 40 years ago, I concluded my volume, The Jews Were Expendable, with these words, quote, "The cancer of bestiality is the concern of us all, and the infinite preciousness of life requires daily affirmation," end quote. Embracing that same credo tonight, I thank Michael Lewis and the ASMEA Prize Committee for this great, prestigious honor. It is one that I shall long cherish. Shalom.
It's really our larger mission. It has been from the beginning at ASMEA to continue the legacy of our founding fathers, and it's a great privilege to see other scholars follow suit. And we will continue, obviously, to maintain that legacy, and it's great to see others follow, younger and older scholars following exactly in the direction of what the association was intended to do. So really, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I want to thank Michael and the Lewis family at large for making this possible, and hopefully we'll have a continuation of a productive conference tomorrow as well. And we hope to see everybody next year as well in much more less troubling times. But obviously, all of us who deal with a very troubled region, no guarantees of that. We try not to predict the future, but we hope. So thank you again, and have a good night.